Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I'm sitting at home in what's been my office for the last little while. I've got a cup of coffee and I've also got my Bible here. And it's great to be able to share today's devotional with you. We've been looking at the life of David these last couple of weeks in these devotionals. We've been looking at all these little moments in David's life. And on Sundays, we've been kind of taking a step back and looking at the big picture of David's life. One of the super cool things about David is that he wrote a whole load of the Psalms. And the Psalms are like these prayers. They're often written in verse or songs sometimes, but they're these prayers, and oftentimes it's just David's heart kind of gushing out to God as he prays and as he works through things. And so we're going to have a look at that today. We're going to have a look at Psalm 51, just a little snippet from it. And I think it's super helpful because there's some lessons in here about how to pray. And prayer is super important right now. It's important in all of life, but it's almost like with the present lockdown situation, taking time out to pray is really, really important. So there's some great lessons in here about how to do that. So this is from Psalm 51. I'll just read it to you. It says, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence, and take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and uphold me with willing spirit." There's so much in here, right? There is loads. We could spend a lot of time here, but I'm just going to draw your attention to three things quickly. So the first is, how cool. David prays for joy. Check that. He says, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation." And it's almost like David woke up not feeling so great, kind of feeling a little bit beaten up, maybe. And so he comes to God and he says, "God, I'm not feeling so good. Would you restore to me the joy? I don't have joy in my heart. Restore to me the joy of your salvation." It's like he goes looking for joy. He's aware of his own emotional state and he brings it before Jesus. And he says, "God, help me with this." I think that's hugely encouraging because oftentimes we think that we've got to have it all together before we come to God. We've got to have our A game on and then we've got to go and pray and then God will listen to us. And David does exactly the opposite. He's very vulnerable. He just goes to Jesus and says, "Hey, I'm not feeling good. I don't have joy in my heart. Lord, would you restore joy to me?" That's an encouragement to us. Second thing that we can see from this is that he gives us a map to where joy lies. Right? He says, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation." It's like he's saying, joy is found when I think about and when I dwell on and when I hope in and when I process your salvation, God. This is helpful to us at the moment because there's so many things that offer us joy and so many things promise joy to us. Netflix, meals, whatever it is, hanging out with friends, going out to the shops and seeing someone, right? That is a promise of joy in a time like this. And those things are all important, but they're all secondary to the joy of salvation, is what David's saying in this text. What does that mean? What does salvation look like? Well, salvation is what God has done in your life. And I think if you spend a little bit of time and look back, perhaps on the last little while, I'm sure you can point at things that God has done. And it's like, look, God is at work. God is doing things in my life. And there's an opportunity to take encouragement from that, to remember those things that have happened and look forward with hope at your future and what's going on and what's going to come because of the evidence that God has given you already of his work. God's salvation is all of his promises to us. It's all the things that he is currently doing and the things that he promises to do for us. And the Bible is full of those things. And it's like David is saying, that's the place to go looking for joy. If you want joy that's really going to sustain you, joy that's going to take you somewhere, joy that's not going to just kind of disappear quickly, this is the place to go looking for it. Again, super helpful about where we focus and where we kind of have our priorities in a time like this. Third and final thing that I want to draw your attention to is, and it's kind of implied in the last two lines, and I'll show you how, is that joy is a heart thing. It's something that goes on deep within us. And I have to say that because oftentimes we confuse the evidence of joy with actual joy. It's almost like if you see someone smiling and happy, they must have joy. And oftentimes the surface doesn't necessarily reflect what's going on inside. And the joy that David is talking about here is deep, heartfelt, real joy and peace and happiness that's going on within your heart. And I want to encourage you in that God's not just looking to give you joy that's a superficial thing. He's not just looking at putting a smile on your face. God is looking at creating joy and generating joy and restoring joy deep within your heart so that it gushes out. This is really important at the moment because now is a great time to be looking around at others and saying, how can I bless people that are around me? How can I help people that I do come into contact with and that I am able to kind of interact with in such a time like this? And this is just a reminder. It's a very quick reminder to us that, yes, we should be looking outward to how we can bless others. But remember that you can't give others something that you don't have within you. And this thing of joy, you can't give people superficial joy. It's got to be joy that comes from within your heart. And so it's an opportunity for us to take a moment and kind of look within and go, God, what's happening in my heart? Won't you restore joy and peace and happiness to me in this time so that it can work itself out through all the things that I have to do and in the lives of all the people that I come into interaction with throughout this day and going forward. So can I encourage you, pray this prayer frequently. Restore to me the joy of your salvation, God. It's not something that you have to just pray once and then kind of get on with the rest of life. It's also one of those things that you don't really settle once and then kind of deal with. It's something that we've got to fight for and we've continuously got to work for. So may I encourage you in that. Pray this prayer frequently. Go back to it. If you don't know what to pray in the mornings, oftentimes just taking out the Bible and reading one of these Psalms and praying it to God is a great way to get started. It's almost like God, the great kind of coach, gave us these words to coach us in how to pray. And that's a super useful tool to us at the moment. So I hope you take courage from that. I hope you make prayer a habit from this, or this prayer specifically a habit. And I pray that you would have joy as you go out today. Bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow.